He knew, this is the tragic thing about it, he knew exactly what was going to happen. He tried to step over the stumps and just flicked a bail with his right
He more or less tried to do the splits over it, and unfortunately the inner part of his thigh must have just removed the bail.
He just didn't quite get his leg over.
Anyhow, he did very well indeed, batting 131 minutes and hit 3 fours. And then we had Lewis playing extremely well for his 47 not out. Agus, do stop it. And he was joined by De Freitas, who was in for 40 minutes, a useful little partnership there. They put on 35 in 40 minutes, and then he was caught.
Got a very welcome guest in our commentary box now. We've got the cousin of the match referee.
How you doing, Jonathan? How you doing, folks?
Russell Crowe, good afternoon. Great to have you here. Have you ever been introduced like that before?
Say that again?
Have you ever had that sort of introduction before?
No, that was an excellent introduction.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'll be working on that. Here's Haddon getting a single through the offside. He might get 2, actually. Bopara rushes up from deep point, and 2 runs it is. 146 for 6. And here you are, first time to Lords or not?
My first time to Lords, yes. It's something that I've been talking about with Martin for probably 20-something years or longer, actually, since he was the... the Junior Cricketer of the Year here at one point?
Yes, indeed. Fantastic.
And
So
he
it's
lived
been
out
a
the
day.
back here by the training field.
Yeah, so it's finally come true.
Yeah, and finally come together to the ground and walk through the long room together, which is something that we've talked about, like I said, for probably nigh on 30 years. And here it is. Today's the day.
Fantastic. Anderson runs away from us, moves in, bowls, and...
Now, Hussein's said whatever he wanted to say, and Key has gone out to backward point. Oh, he hasn't finished fiddling. Vaughan's coming in. And deep mid-wicket's coming in.
He's going to play the slog sweep. All 3 are going over, or he gets this 100. If Dawson pitches middle and off, he's in the frame, but so Steve Waugh, because he's just, he's going to play this stroke.
Oh, this is...
It's death or glory off the last ball of the 3rd day.
He's going to block it. 2:33 for 5. Here we go. Dawson comes up and bowls to Waugh, who drives through the offside for his 100. That is extraordinary. And Steve Waugh, a man of little emotion, can barely restrain himself now. His helmet's off. Oh, he's waving his bat. Alex Stewart shakes his hand. You could not have scripted anything more remarkable than what we have seen here this afternoon. Possibly you have to have followed this saga very closely to fully appreciate it. But this is a man who has been largely written off through no fault of his own, only that a bit of old age is starting to catch up. And he has played the most extraordinary innings here this afternoon, not simply for himself, but for his team. And that's the reception as he walks off. 102 not out. And he's coming back tomorrow for some more.
So we're at tea, 2:21 for 7. And it's a great pleasure to welcome Hugh Grant to the box.
Oh, thank you very much.
Good to see you, Hugh.
Yeah.
We've seen you chewing your fingernails a bit over the last couple of days.
Yeah, I'm suffering, I think, more than anyone in the whole crowd. I can barely speak. It's hell.
Really
I just
bad.
say, yeah, you spend all this money on tickets and, in fact, then put yourself through 2 days of unmitigated misery.
Yeah. How do you feel at the moment?
Well, one tiny millifraction less frightened than I was 10 minutes ago, but it looks like an awful lot of overs. Apparently you can go on until it's dark.
Oh, we can.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, we'll keep plugging away.
Yeah.
Was there a moment I felt when Peterson got his 100 that there just seemed to be a little bit of a release of that pressure, almost like just taking a bit of the top off the steam cook and just a little bit?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of very frightened and semi-drunk people who needed to let off some steam then. And I know I was one of them, and it was it was amazing. It was amazing. I worship him now. In fact, I'm now going to dye my hair. Kevin Peterson's cut, yeah.
Well, that'd be interesting.
If I can get
Riding through the city on my bike all day, 'cause the filth took away my license. It doesn't get me down and I feel okay.
Well, it showed me up. I have to be honest. The other day, I was sitting here. I'd got the lyrics for one of your songs, which I'm not going to go into.
Right,
except I was reading it off the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Quite loudly. I think I was entertaining Malcolm, saying, "Cool, look what we got on the programme on Saturday. Look at this." So I was reading out. It was the title to this song. If your followers will know, quite loudly.
Mm-hmm.
When to my absolute horror, I looked just here to my left. I was 3 yards away, and there was a lovely woman bearing a cake.
Oh, no.
And she said, Aggers, I've brought this for you. And she heard me saying the most appalling language.
Oh, no.
And it was quite embarrassing.
That is truly awful. Talking of appalling language, I think we should be able to hear more of the sledging.
Ah, OK.
Don't you think? I think that's how you're going to get more young people into cricket. We've got to get some more microphones down on those wickets.
Here's Broad coming in and bowling to Voges. Oh, he's brilliantly caught! Brilliantly caught! That is an outrageous catch by Ben Stokes. That was gone, it was past him. And he flung himself backwards and to his right. You won't see a better catch, I'm sorry. That you can have your Andrew Strauss here in 2005. That beats it. That beats that catch. That was quicker. It had gone. He had no time to see that.
Oh.
Well,
What a catch. What a catch. What a delivery, first of all. And look at Stuart Broad's face. He's run up to Ben Stokes with his hands over his mouth and he can't believe he's caught it. It was a couple of feet past him.
it's outrageous.
Yeah,
that was an outrageous catch. I don't know how he caught
Thank you, Simon, very much. Indeed, in the chairman's office. What a wonderful view he has. I'm amazed he gets any work done at all here. The third floor up of the pavilion used to be about the area of the old visitors' dressing rooms up here. Here I am, closeted away, with the Prime Minister, David Cameron. Lovely to see you. The last time you were on, of course, you were leader of the opposition and life was easy. Or easier.
Well, I remember we had a good chat at Lord's in your... I was in the TMS studio that time,
You
so we
were.
got the cake, we got Geoffrey Boycott, we got the full package.
We thought we'd
I feel
spare you
slightly,
Geoffrey
feel
Boycott
slightly
today.
robbed this time, but anyway, it's lovely to be here for an afternoon of enjoyable cricket.
Great. And you're quite happy to come? You're able to come? It's not a problem for you to come? Lots of people always say, what is the Prime Minister doing? He should be leading the country rather than watching cricket at the Oval.
Well, I hope no one will begrudge an afternoon's cricket, particularly when England are playing so well. I had a busy day today. I've had the living...
Kevin Peterson needed a new bat rubber on his handle, and as we know, all amateurs will know, it's not easy to do that. You've got to roll it on down the stick and make sure that it's all in place, and no floppy stuff on the end of the handle or anything like that. You can't have that, so it's a bit of a procedure, and I thought he did it very well, actually. Michael Vaughan's beside me. It's not easy putting a rubber on, is it?
No, it's not. I was never good at that.
2-10 for 2. In comes Fernando. Bowls, and that's turned away for backward square leg, and they'll come back for 2. You know what I meant.
Shall we move on?
You know what I meant.
Hello, Henry. He's played well, KP, hasn't he?
He has played well.
You really get to feel that you're amongst the atmosphere and amongst the crowd. It's been pretty quiet walking around. I must say, a lot of people I think have rather given up what's going on. But Roy Hodgson hasn't. You haven't given up, have you, Roy? I mean, you've seen adversity before. I just wonder what you might be saying if you were Andy Flower, if you were England. Do you want to switch sports? Do you want to go in there now and try and G them up?
I think it must be very difficult. I think 2 days virtually in the field like they've had to do, batting on such a good wicket as the South Africans have been able to do. I feel really sorry for the bowlers and the fielders. It's been a thankless task, and I suppose now they're going to have to face quite a difficult period themselves because they've got such a commanding lead, the South Africans. It's not going to be easy for the English batsmen, despite the fact the wicket is playing quite nice.
It looks as though the officials...
I'm getting some news, Jim. Apparently, the umpires are going to come out and take the bails off.
Right.
And that is going to be the moment that this game is over and England win the Ashes. No one in the crowd actually knows what's going on here. There's been no public address announcement about this. We've just got inside word up here. This is what's going to happen. They are inspecting for light. They're really just going through the motions here. The umpires are going to their respective ends, and in the most extraordinary manner, the bails are removed by umpire Bowden. He throws one in the air, and England have won the Ashes. Finally, in the most bizarre ending. Oh, let the crowd speak for themselves.
It's come to this. Here's the last ball of the World Cup final. Archer bowls it. It's clipped away into the leg side. They're going to come back for the second. The throw is picked up. They throw to the wicket keeper's end. He's run out, is he? I think he's run out. England think he's run out. England are convinced he's been run out. They're celebrating. It was thrown to the right end, to Butler's end, who had to work hard to take those bails off. England are sure they've got him. through a tie in the tiebreaker. But it's England's game on more boundaries in the match. New Zealand look devastated. Guptill's on his haunches. I think he knows, as England do. Here's the replay. Wait for the cheer. We're watching Butler gather the ball. He's got a bit of work to do to take it to the stumps. Wait now, listen. That tells you that England have won the World Cup. 3:58 for 9. Stokes on strike. England need 1 to win. And in comes Pat Cummins from the far end. He bowls to Stokes, who hammers it for 4! And stands there with the bat raised. I can't believe we've seen that.
That is the most extraordinary innings ever been played by an Englishman.
He punches the air, his helmet's off. He was hit on that helmet this morning. Bits flew off all over the place. And he slumped to his knees.
Batting for 35 minutes, hit a 4 over the wicketkeepers. Angus, for goodness sake, stop it.
Yes, Lawrence played extremely well.
He hit a 4 over the wicketkeeper's head. And he was out for 9. And Tafel came, batted for 12 minutes, and then was caught by Haynes on Patterson for 2. And there were 54 extras, and England were all out for 419. I've stopped laughing now.
There we go, Agus. Just a few highlights of your 300 tests and 25 years as a correspondent. Now, you can't interview yourself. Well, you'd probably like to, I don't know. So we managed to find someone who might just be able to do the job.
And you're a liar as well, because you said you weren't going to be around.
I did say that. Yes, I had to be very cautious and hold my mouth, actually. But I'm delighted to be here, because, as you know, apart from being a mate of yours, I'm also a great fan of yours. And we thought it would be rather nice to sort of do a little quick trawl through your life and your work with TMS.
You've completely stitched me up. They all have. I can't believe...
Well, you deserve it. I mean, yes, you do. 25 years.
Easiest job in the world.
No, well, the most enjoyable job in the world,
yes.
Maybe. Not the easiest job in the world, that is for sure. The special gift for doing radio, and you have it. At least the first question, I mean, did you always have it from the very beginning? Were you settled here? Did you immediately feel, yeah, I'm at home?
Well, I think I did, because I hadn't really listened to the programme when I was playing cricket. And I think if I had done, and if I had been a proper broadcaster, I think I would have been very anxious about suddenly coming into Test Match Special. But as it happened, I hadn't really heard it. I heard it as a kid, when my dad was a farmer, and he had the radio on when he was gathering in the grain and so on. But there was then that big 15-year gap, really, of not hearing John as very much, or John Arlott, or anything. I can't believe you're sitting here, Michael, by the way, and asking big questions. It's ridiculous. But so therefore, I think I was just really lucky to go in from a much more relaxed position than I would have been otherwise.
Being very relaxed about it all, and a lovely sort of rhythm and sense of timing in what you do. But let's go back to the days when you were a player. You left playing cricket when you were 30. Does that denote a certain disenchantment with the game?
I'd had enough. I'd had enough standing at long leg.
What?
Because I think the trouble is, Michael, and I see the people playing now, if you know you're not going to play for England again, and my English career was a disaster, really. Look at the batting average and the bowling average are the wrong way round. If I had a batting average of 90 in Test cricket and a bowling average, but anyway. So I think, but once you've played for England and you know it's not going to happen again, then it's time to go, I think. If you are very competitive, and I am very competitive, then I didn't see more years standing at Grace Road admiring the rose bushes at fine leg, so it was time to move on, and I was very lucky that this job came up. The Today newspaper, which you'd remember.
Yes, you were working
Eddie
with
Shot,
Today,
yes,
of course.
The first colour paper.
That's right.
Everything was blue. But they were brilliant because they sent me off, this is when I was still playing, but they sent me off for some winters to do, skiing, Aussie rules, rugby, surfing, everything really. And so go away and write about it, which is a really good experience.
Of learning your trade.
Absolutely. And the first of these 300 tests was working for them, actually, in Australia. So that, without them and the people that worked there, I wouldn't be sitting here now talking to you, because that cutting edge of a tabloid newspaper was really important.
Yeah, but when you came into TMS, I mean, it was full of old pros. Yes. I mean, we've been around for an age and more. How did they greet you? What was it like? Was it sticky to begin with?
No, it wasn't. Because my first memory is walking into the old box at Headingham, which you would know so well, down there in the old football stand. Rickety old place, wasn't it? Awful place. Yeah. It was just falling apart for years. But anyways, we're not there anymore. But my first glimpse was opening the door. Well, actually, I'll go back one step. I saw Blowers, who was actually going to work for Sky then. So he was going, I was coming. And Blowers said, well, one piece of advice to you, Aggers, is absolutely be yourself. Don't try and be anybody else, because radio will show you up. Be
Good
yourself.
Advice.
And so I waved Henry off to go and start his career at Sky. And I walked into the commentary box, and there was this old boy stooped over a sort of pile of cake boxes. And it was Johners. And he said, you must be Aggers. And that was it. And Peter Baxter, very wisely, because I hadn't commentated before on anything, decided that I'd be an expert summariser for that first year, which is a joke, because the other two expert summarisers were Fred Truman and Trevor Bailey, and then me. So anyway, but the point being that I would sit beside Johners and watch and learn. And he and I did hit it off. I mean, You
did. You were like a comedy act, actually.
Well, it's like...
It was wonderful. The Western Brothers.
Do you think...
It was rather stylish, you know.
Do you think so?
My brother and I.
Don't you think that there is often a good gap in generations, though? Because with grandparents and grandchildren are often even closer, maybe, than parents and children sometimes. Yeah. And he was like a granddad to me, really. I mean, he was, because the age difference, just the way he looked after me. Yes. And we just got on incredibly well. And, of course, the leg over that we heard there...
Well, I mean, I have to tell you, the only thing that would get me back on to tell it to radio, in fact, to do my second This Is Your Life, or whatever it's called, Desert Island Disc, would be to actually choose that as the funniest broadcast I've ever heard in my life.
Would you have it on?
Oh, would I ever have it on? I mean, it is priceless, and no matter how many times you see it, or hear it rather, it is wonderful. It is so funny.
Yeah, and it has been seen once.
Has it?
And that was the only time I was ever paid for it. I got 50 quid because it turned up on Auntie's Bloomers. Do you remember that Terry Wogan used to do?
That, yeah.
Well, otherwise it's been one of the most extraordinary replay things. It's played everywhere. Man.
I love the thought of people driving along and crashing into each other.
And funny enough, Johners, when it happened, was really quite cross. And he stomped off at the Oval. It was my first year. And he stomped off into the night, shaking his head. And I remember he was very upset at home. And the next morning...
He'd already gone too far.
He'd already gone too far. He'd lost it, unprofessional, and it hadn't been very funny. Absolutely. I mean, he was really worried about it. The next day, we don't get them now, it's all emails, isn't it, and so on, but there was this mountain of letters. And I was reasonably confident, because I'd heard it being played on the Today programme, so I thought, actually, this is funny, you know. So I waited for the old boy to come in, and he started picking through these letters. He still wasn't talking to me. And he got to one from Ronnie Corbett's wife. So she opened up, yes. And she had been one of these people who was stuck in the Dartford Tunnel or something, laughing, you know. And so immediately his mood lifted. And I took him down to the engineer and said, come on, Brian, we've got to come and have a listen to this. And we sat there and listened to it. Of course, he had tears pouring down his face. I mean, he loved it after that. But it was a classic. But of course, he then wouldn't work with me anymore. He said, if we look at each other like you and I are now, it would be hopeless. And he was right, really. We'd just end up corpsing anyway. We had a couple of goes, but we just sort of broke into silly laughter, really.
But speaking about relationships, I mean, that was a very, sort of, as you've said, so it was a good grandfather-son, sort of grandson relationship. How do you sort of explain your relationship with Jeffrey Boycott? And I must explore this, because this is something phenomenal. I mean, you're keeping him in work, you know. I mean,
I know. People always wonder, don't they? I mean, I suspect because on the radio, it is a bit bickery, isn't it? I mean, it can be a bit edgy, I suppose. But I'm with you, I think. I mean, I do have a sort of a genuine affection for Geoffrey. It's not easy, is it?
It's not, no. I've tried since I was 16.
I know, and you've known him considerably longer than I have. No, but I mean, we are really good mates, and like you, I mean, you can't help but admire him for a start.
He reads the game well.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
I think of all the summarisers, the experts I've worked with, he's the most pithy. He'll put, particularly batsmen. I mean, bowlers obviously not quite his thing, but particularly batting, he will highlight a weakness, particularly because that's his strength, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Technical weakness, or he will highlight that within just a few minutes. And I really admire that. He's never late. He's always got something to say. So I love Geoffrey. And when he was ill, I mean, you'd go and see him, I'd go and see him, and he wasn't. He was in a bad state.
I was in the most awful illness he had.
Yeah, he was. And for him to, well, it's kind of typical of him, really, that he's fought it off.
It, yeah.
But, you get people, and when I feel Geoffrey sit down beside me, you're going to have some fun.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because when you started as an ex-pro, the problem always is, if you're going to be honest in your commentary, that you have to actually criticise at times some fellow pros, and some are very good at that and get into it straight away. Others back off, and there's nothing worse than listening at home and feeling he's backing off this. And you can't accuse you of doing that, nor Geoffrey doing that. I mean, you've always been very honest in your opinion, and sometimes I suppose it might have cost you a friendship. I mean, there was a famous incident with your commentary about Michael Atherton on the Dustin and Pocky thing. You didn't hold back there at all. You said you thought he should be sacked. When you did that, did you understand the consequences might be losing a friend?
It's funny that, because Mike and I have still never talked about that.
Really?
No.
You've never
What was
said
that?
it
That
up?
was, 94, 95?
Yeah.
It's a long time. And we were perfectly good mates, and we chat and we talk, but we've never talked about that.
Really?
Yeah. And it was here. And it was, I think that obviously, and then with the KP business latterly has been the most difficult times doing this job, because you do have to be honest. You might be wrong.
Yes.
But you've got to be honest.
Yes.
And the Mike one was really hard, because we'd had the year before a lot of ball tampering issues with Pakistan and so on. I mean, it seemed to be, well, it's all right for us to pile into the Pakistani fast bowlers and talk about it, but actually, when one of our own appears to be ball tampering, for some reason we shouldn't talk about it.
Yes.
And I thought that was wrong. And it was interesting how actually the broadsheets sided entirely with him, whereas the tabloid newspapers rather sided with my argument. But it was really unpleasant, really unpleasant. And I remember you came up to interview me, didn't you?
I did.
For the Telegraph.
That's right.
And that was, in a way, a bit of a turning of the tide, because I think you whether you thought I was right or not, I don't think it matters, but I think you felt that I was right to say it, whereas others ran a very stiff campaign, some newspapers, actually to get me out of the job, because they argued that BBC correspondent shouldn't make comment like that.
Yes.
Would the political correspondent of the time demand for the Prime Minister to be sacked? They sort of likened it like that, which made it all a bit complicated. But I think, well, you're popping up to see me there, sort of just turn the tide a little bit, actually.
Oh, that's good. Good news.
But it's funny how we've never
talked about it to Mike. That's interesting. It sort of looks there like a shadowing across the relationship in a sense.
It does.
Yeah.
I do wonder what he would have written now, by the way, if he'd been sitting watching that.
Yes. Well, again, he's a very honest journalist.
He is, absolutely.
So I think he might have actually sided with you.
I take the view, Michael, and you know this, you covered sport for years, that whatever happens on the field is not actually your doing. It's not your fault. Like Stuart Broad not walking at Headingley at Trent Bridge, who again is really, their family is very close friends of mine. I walk my dogs with Stuart, and for people sometimes to write stuff about, journalists are too close to players. Well, hang on a minute, maybe you do get close to the players, but you still got to do your job. I walk my dogs with Stuart, but I said, I'm sorry, you can't behave like that. That's cheating. You shouldn't do that.
Yes.
So you do have to do your job as well as maintain relationships in the game, and sometimes they do sustain. Yeah.
What about television? You've never been seduced by it, have you? Been offered?
Michael, I've got a great face for radio, and the man who says that is Ian Botham next door. No, I couldn't do television, I don't think.
Why would that be?
Because it's just a completely different. I mean, I think blowers would accept that television wasn't him either. I think radio, you're looking out here through our magnificent window and beyond the stands and out and almost as far as Heathrow or the city or whatever. Whereas on telly, you've got that little monitor.
Yes.
And you've got the man in your ear, which I also find very difficult too. Whereas this you can just bring people with you. I think you communicate so much more on radio than you can on television. You can have fun with people, you can tease people a bit. I love it when we're abroad and
it's in the middle of the night, and you just think of the people lying in bed. They've got their headphones on, and you're in there. You're almost sort of part. You're part of their. You're right in their brains, and that's. Yeah, it's a real privilege to do that, of course. But it's great fun to do it as well. And I love teasing people, and you can tease the listeners as well as you tease the people that you're working with, can't you? And that's all part of it. I just don't think it's not as relaxed as that.
No, well, I see your point, absolutely. But I think that there's always that seduction of becoming that TV face, isn't there?
But it's so nice not to have that, isn't it? I was talking to these two young guys, these actors yesterday, who, because they've made up differently when they were filming, they can almost wander around incognito. I'd hate to be someone like Ian Botham. I see scurrying in through the gates here. Yes. People descending on him and so on, whereas a radio man can just wander through unnoticed, which is great.
Okay, now just think of the great moments. I know that in the preamble to this there was a sort of a litany of stuff there.
Just to bring back the memories when you hear things like that.
That's what I want to ask you. I mean, when you sort of think back, and as you do, you lie there at night, sort of trying to get to sleep, or you think back over your career. Who have been the truly great players that you've seen? The guys that really moved you, that you thought that is exceptional.
Yeah. Shane Warne would be number one, I think.
Yeah.
I love seeing him around.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, apart from physically, he hasn't changed at all, has he? He's still the same bloke.
He's got more hair.
He has. But I love seeing Shane. But to commentate on him bowling, this amazing bowler, brilliant bowler, but also this sort of pantomime dame figure.
Yes.
To bring the colour to you, as a commentator, you want something like that.
Yes.
You don't just want somebody running in and doing or just batting mechanically. For a radio commentator, you want the rest of it.
Yes.
That colour, and I thought Shane gave you that in spades.
He was showbiz, wasn't he? He was a great player.
Tendulkar, I love watching bat, of course, but then he just sort of batted, beautifully, but I never got necessarily terribly excited about watching Tendulkar. I'd rather watch Adam Gilchrist, who kind of changed wicket-keeping and batting when he was going. And I know that sort of England supporters would go, Steve Waugh. But funnily enough, that commentary that they played was not on BBC, that was on the ABC. And we got it, but I was on with Kerry O'Keefe, who also was a wonderful person to listen to. But for an Englishman to broadcast on such a significant moment as that, I thought was just wonderful, because you do go onto these radio stations as a guest, really, and sometimes there's I feel part of the setup now. I've done it for so long, but you do have to sort of people. I think Australian listeners might listen to this pom on for a while and wonder if you cut them.
Start with a disadvantage.
I think you do. You've got to win them over, haven't you?
Absolutely.
But to be able to do that, because everything was against Steve at the time, really, and they were trying to get him out. And that was such a brave innings, and I just felt that almost anybody else would just have just patted the ball away, and they would have come back for the next day about 93 not out, and then got their 100.
Not him.
Off the last ball of the day. I mean, it was that I think was the most excited I've ever been, and it was a blooming Australian batsman scoring 100 against Australia. But I think it was because the Ashes in 2005 was amazing, and the scene at the Oval was one that you could never forget. Anybody that was there would never forget it, and especially if you had a bit of height and you could see beyond the Oval and look at the people in the windows and on the roofs and the balconies and chimney pots and so on. And Leslie Garrett singing and Hugh Grant in the box, but it was a bit of an anticlimax the way that it happened. The bus was great though. That was the next day. To be on that was a ridiculous privilege. It was. There's only me and a guy from Sky with any journos on it.
Yeah.
And dear old Andrew Flintoff giving his indecipherable interview at the front. I mean, things like that. I mean, the more you think about it, Mike, I mean, these things are lovely to be ambushed, but you kind of wish you'd had 10 minutes to think of these wonderful things.
What about the other aspect of your job here, which is the interviews that you do with famous personalities or whatever? I did a few of them, and I know that it sounds a wonderful job, but it can actually be disastrous at times. What's the biggest disaster you had? Why are they laughing?
You know I can't answer that.
Yes, well, give us a hint. Male or female?
It's male.
Yeah.
The only hint I'll give you...
Part of a famous acting family?
That's as far as it's going to go. Because I feel embarrassed just in case he's listening. I do say it to my guests now, if I ever ask you what do you think of the Euro, it means we're struggling, because that was the last question that I said to this acting, great dynasty individual. And I remember the door burst open and the producer came rushing because he knew I must have asked him 300 questions.
Nothing came back at all.
Nothing. And that was literally the last question. That was the last thing I could think of asking him.
I know, it's terrible.
And it dented my confidence for a while. And I didn't do the next couple. And Peter Baxter got hold of me and said, "This is ridiculous. You've got to get back on the horse.
Yeah.
Choose who you want." And so I went for Stephen Fry. Asked him about 3 questions in 40 minutes.
The go-to situation.
But you've helped me. See, you're hiding your light under your bushel. You've helped me with that. I've come to you for help on these interviews, and you've been kind enough to do it because I suppose there is a sort of a technique to doing it, but you are alone. I mean, you are alone in this box with nowhere to go. You can't go to the traffic news or a weather forecast, and you are totally in the hands of that person who comes in. But most people, they're just thrilled to be here.
I think you should have an ejector seat, actually. That's why I always thought of it. I thought you just pressed the button and off they went, Thank you and goodbye.
But
don't
it's a
come
challenge.
back.
I mean, it's great to talk to people.
Yeah, absolutely. But when the other person, it's a two-way stretch in an interview. If the other person can't be bothered, you've had it.
Yeah.
I sat there many times and geez,
I know.
What am I doing?
But
here?
often, don't you find when your mind has gone blank, it's happened a few times, you think, what was I going to ask? Thank goodness the person that you're interviewing has just given you an extra sentence or two. So it's come back again. I've been in that situation times where there's just nothing there. And you think if they stop now, I don't know what I'm going to ask. But they've just given you another couple of sentences and something comes back. By the way, have you taken my name off your top of your phone?
Oh gosh, I know, it's terrible. I sort of bang the phone in my pocket
and it always rings
on his number.
Always rings me.
You must have about 75 calls from me. You must think I'm stalking you.
Well, I thought you've seen now.
Well, I mean, that's a fair bet, let me tell you. No, the other thing, of course, the opposite to what we've been talking about are the ones that you really look forward to. Now, Stephen Fry apart, who was just a fascinating man, wonderful talker about any subject you care to mention, and a few you didn't mention it too. But, I mean, from that point of view, who have been the ones that you've most enjoyed then?
Well, the one that I want to do more than is Alex Ferguson.
Ah, yes, a very good one.
Love to do. Talk to. Have you interviewed Alex Ferguson?
No, never.
I'd love to do that, only because I suppose of the reputation that comes with him, but also, I mean, the extraordinary career that he's managed. I mean, he has managed somehow to keep a sporting team evolving, which has never really happened in cricket, has it? You look at the Great West Indies team, the Great Australian team, and so on. They've only had a shelf life of 10 years or so. So anyway, I'd like to. I'll tell you one I really enjoyed, and in a way, it really brought home a lesson to me as well. We've only recorded a very few of these, as in, on tape beforehand. One was Elton John, and for a start, I knew he knew a bit about cricket, and that's all you ever ask from these people, isn't it? They come with a bit of cricket, and off you go, and
he loves the game.
It's an excuse to get them on.
Can't play.
So first of all, I turned up, and we were at Battersea, and his sort of advisor said, "Do you want to interview Elton in his sort of lorry or on his piano stool?" So I went and I thought, I better have a look at his lorry, and it was like a Hilton. It was extremely massive bed, a huge screen and everything else. And I said, I think I'll do it on the piano stool. So I got his piano stool, and sure enough, Elton John turned up. And first of all, he started talking to me about that amazing one-day international yesterday between West Indies and Zimbabwe. Did you see it? And I said, no, I didn't. And he was talking about these fast bowlers he'd seen and so on, and talked about playing here at Lord's and so on. So when first, his cricket knowledge really gripped me, actually, the fact that he was. But what the lesson that I learned was he was about to do a concert. And how many times? I mean, do you know the words to Your Song by Elton John? I mean, we've all had a bit of a drunken go, haven't we? You don't know the words?
I know.
You know the
not
song.
all of them. I know the song.
You kick it off, right? Well, I think I would know most of the words to Your Song. Most famous. He had 3 screens up.
Yes.
From his view from his piano stool of the lyrics to Your Song. He's going to obviously sing that first. And I thought, how professional is that? If there are times when you're feeling a bit that you can't really be bothered to do a bit of preparation or something.
Yeah.
There's him, and he's gone to that length.
Bing Crosby had the cue board up for White Christmas. You thought he might have known that.
But that's it.
Listen, we have to go now because the players are.
You are an old rogue.
I've
been completely stitched by everybody.
I really much enjoyed that, and the nice thing about you, I think, from one professional to another, is you never lost your sense of wonder about this game. And you report the game and they play wonderfully well.
Best in the world, isn't it?
Got to keep 25 going. Years, keep on going.
Michael, you've done me there, and you've all done me. But I really enjoyed it. Thank you, mate. Top man. We can have some lunch or what? Time for lunch? Good lad.